Hello and welcome to INN's Daily Headline News. This is part of our Media Watch feature. It is now the end of the day at 12:30 a.m. We just finished Wednesday, I think it was March 7th. It does take a bit of time to put this segment together, due to the fact that there are an enormous number of sources that I have to go through in order to sort of check out all the stories. While you can, in the down bar below, and I'm leaving my video comments, so you can leave as many video comments as you'd like, and if you have evidence that you want to send me that to review, I will review it. I will not necessarily put it up. I've found through a fair bit of research that there is a significant amount of censorship going on, and it's not always a good idea to put up video of evidence until you're really in a good position to say, okay, enough people have it, enough people have seen it, put this out. Right now, there is an effort afoot to really stop the viral videos, particularly for political purposes, from ever reaching the internet or actually getting out. The efforts that we see in Syria, we saw in Libya, and in Egypt, and all these other places that we were talking about, how the government should respect the rights of the people and keep the internet open and free. The governments in North America and in Europe, the Western governments, are now pursuing programs of the same ilk as the programs that were done by the dictators that they supposedly wanted to overthrow. So the way I will approach this is that at some point in time, outside of Media Watch, there will be documentaries posted. I will try to do a documentary every other week. These documents will have a chunk of the video evidence in it. What you also should do is I'll give you references in terms of books you should be reading. Geopolitics is not a simple endeavor. It is going to take a fair bit of reading. On today's list, I would recommend reading all the works by George Orwell and a book called The Prince. Pick that up. And it's by a person named Machiavelli. And these books, Orwell's books and Machiavelli's books, really form the core of what's going on today. And most political ideology can be sort of traced back to these books so these are good primers to understand. If you're interested in geopolitics, these are the good primers to work with. So let's begin with today's headlines. In the news today was the usual list of suspects. Syria, Iran, Libya was in the news a little bit today. The American-Israeli Political Affairs Committee, AIPAC, had their convention, and there was enormous discussion around that today, as the results of the meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Obama took place. Then you still have the goings-on and the tea leaf readings surrounding the Republican primary. This will sort of determine where the United States is headed in terms of its not only domestic policy for economic purposes, but also its foreign policy. And then one of the things I saw coming up on YouTube, and it's gone viral, and it's now sort of hit the mainstream news now. And things typically start off on the internet first. You'll see things on YouTube or on on the various different vlogospheres. Once they hit the blogosphere, what you will see is a move towards the mainstream media. It starts hitting the later night stuff, and then comes up during the day. And it's around this group pushing for something known as KONY 2012. It's aimed at Uganda rebel leader who created child soldiers and pushed a lot of children into sex slavery. Well, the problem that I had beginning with the KONY the KONY 2012 is it's not that I'm against this, but given the nature of geopolitics, one needs to ask the question: why is this coming out, and who's putting this out? Well, the group behind this is not clearly visible. I have some references. I haven't finished going through all of them yet to find out and dig who KONY 2012 is. Who is the group pushing for this? And the thing is that you can't simply take something at face value and say, okay, let's do this. And the reason for this is that not only is what we see in Uganda going on, but it's also going on at the UN. Right? There's child sex slavery going on at the UN. It's going on in the EU, and it's going on in the United States in Washington D.C. in the power broker in the halls of the power brokers. I mean, just today, a woman was arrested for pimping children to a lot of elites in New York City. I'll sort of deal with this in tomorrow's headline broadcast in a little bit more detail, because today we're going to go back and look at a little bit more of the Syrian and Iranian issue, because there is an enormous amount there to really sort of that we have to get to, but there's the number of people who are involved, and I'm talking about the elites here, the people who run the city, the chiefs of police, the judges, politicians, even up to the presidents and vice presidents. You know, the world leaders are all involved in, to some degree, in child prostitution. Well, not everybody's involved in it, but there is a good chunk that's there. And the thing is, this has been showing up not only in Africa and Uganda. It's been showing up. It showed up actually. There's been several years of news and reports coming out of Africa about the UN's behavior in Africa using some of these sex slaves. There was a report from a British human rights group dealing in trafficked women, showing a British connection to trafficked sex slaves. They also produced a documentary and a study that showed that Europe, centralized Europe, where they have a more, we call a liberal attitude towards sex and sexuality, that the use of child sex slaves and sex slaves themselves did not decrease but increased. Matter of fact, the number of pedophiles in that area of Europe, the Netherlands, they were saying, Sweden, Germany, even in England, the number of pedophiles is higher than anywhere else. And that a lot of these children who are trafficked are sort of sent to these more liberal areas in these little in Europe, in the we call this the white European the white Europe, is also not a mistake or to say that this is a problem in Eastern Europe with the Slavics, the Slavs. They very specifically have a problem. The number of girls, the Albanian girls who have been trafficked, there is an Albanian trafficking. There's problems with the Romanians. There's a whole, I mean, you can go to almost every country and find this as a specific issue, including the United States, Canada, and in Mexico. So the question is, why the campaign against one person and not go after the entire issue? And this is sort of the question that sort of popped into my mind as I was looking at it, and they're saying, let's go and try and catch this guy. Let's try to get this person convicted. Great, yeah, okay. But how does this resolve everything else that's going on? Or is this simply another, what I call, stunt to make it look like things are being done when nothing is actually going on, so that we sort of have status quo? Every once in a while, you can see that if there's a lot of heat building up on a particular community, that they'll throw out one of their own, hoping that the sacrifice of one of their own, right, like throwing a bone to a dog, will be enough to satisfy the craze and curiosity for it, and then they will simply go away and focus on something else. But that, I don't know, that works for a bit, but then it always, again, depending on American media and how successful this new attempt to really indoctrinate the young people on YouTube and in these different areas, and to actually think they're doing something, depending on how successful that is, we could see that. But at the same time, this is actually not something we're really seeing, because we're seeing more group, and this is highlighted by the arrest of the group Lusak in Europe and all over in part of the United States. These are the hacking group that sort of are connected to the anonymous hacking group. These are the ones who brought down Sony. They're the ones they've even attacked the CIA, in terms of the CIA has privatized a lot of their work, and they've gone after a number of the companies. Right, when they attack the corporations, a lot of these corporations are involved in CIA. They're contractors for CIA, for intelligence, for security operations. So they're going after companies like Blackwater. They're going after. There's another one I can't remember. A couple more that I can't remember who they really are. And they're going after these companies in terms of not really doing anything, just sort of. I call it a virtual version of Ding Dong Ditch. They ring the doorbell and then run away. So they're more of an annoyance than they are a security threat. But the establishment has to sort of put up this sort of face that, oh, this is something serious. And it was revealed today that from one of the sources that I was looking at, that the reason they were able to find this group, Lusak, is because there was a mole inside. There was an FBI mole inside the group. Well, this reminds me of basically of an episode in MASH surrounding Colonel Flagg and one of his cohorts at another intelligence agency, each believing each other to be enemy spies, trying to convince each other to go out and do something against the United States during the Korean War. And they have a whole episode in MASH, and this is what I'm saying. You should go back and not go back, but for those of you who haven't seen MASH, take a look at the TV show MASH. Get as much as you can. You should be able to find it on YouTube. if you've already seen that, you're a person who knows what I'm talking about in terms of MASH, go back and take a look at this again. Look at the episodes with Colonel Flagg in there. You can also see this recent warmonger that you see from Senator John McCain, Lieberman, and I can't remember what others. There's another senator in there as well that there's three of them that are very, very hawkish, and they're really pushing. Excuse me, for a military option, and they're usually up there involved in the military. You know, they work for the military. Oh yeah, Lindsey Graham. That's the senator. Lindsey Graham is a senator that's with these are the three that are really close in with the military-industrial complex. They're the ones who push for larger budgets for the military. But it's easy to say that this is a push from the military-industrial complex in terms of what we're seeing, in terms of how, and this is a reference to Colonel Flagg. This is a reference to a lot of what MASH was talking about, in how it relates to the hacker group Anonymous and the recent arrest of Lusak, when you had a government agent inside pushing for this. In covert operations and in the world of geopolitics, as I said, nobody is there to be friends. And alliances are there on mutual interests, and only where interests are indeed mutual. Once the mutual interest is over, so is the alliance. So there's always this jockeying and positioning, and this is sort of what you see in the primaries. When you watch the primary, you see how these people are sort of battling themselves, battling themselves in order to get to this one position, even though it may be destroying them in terms of how they're going to go after Obama after this. This is sort of the nature of power, and it exists all the way throughout, and even down into the lower levels. This sort of politics plays itself out, and this is kind of why when you see the politics of what's going on in school social circles, is the same behavior, the bullying behavior that we see in the schools is being pushed out. Not really pushed out, but it reflects what's going on in the larger context of society. We see it in the corporate boardrooms. We see it in the politics. We see it, in the geopolitics. Everywhere you go, you see this type of bullying. And so the kids, when you talk about why are they behaving the way they are, all you have to do is understand that the way the younger generation behaves is simply a reflection of our own behavior. And if you want to change that behavior, you need to change our behavior first before somebody else's behavior changes. So, but this is not exactly what's occurring right now. What's occurring right now is this all-out battle, and we are in election season, and so there's a lot of political jockeying going on. And one of the political things going on right now is that Israel wants to attack Iran. And that's not say Israel in terms of everybody in Israel. The reports and the sources that I get coming out of Israel from ordinary citizen groups is that there's a huge disconnect between the power brokers in Israel and the citizens of Israel. The power brokers in Israel are in line with AIPAC, and when I watch they have these talk shows over the internet where you have these talk shows and these interviews and these videos that I get from they're from both sides of the issue. They're from a variety of different groups, including some of these non-mainstream groups on either side of the issue. I don't simply look at one side of the issue and say, okay, this is what I'm going to talk about. You have to look at all of the different information that's coming out. And this is where the difficulty comes in, is that you get 10 resources initially. You initially start off with 10 resources to look at. Well, if each of these resources have 3 resources that you can find behind it, well, after you've done the 10, you now have 30 to go look at, because if each one of the 10 produce 3 times 10 is 30, you now have, after the 10 resources you've just finished looking at, you now have another 30 to go. And this keeps going on. Each resource produces multiple other resources that you need to go and take a look at. And so it's rather impossible in a nighttime broadcast like this to really bring out all the resources that you have. You say, well, where's your proof? Where's your resource? Well, the thing is, it's not. There is no way to do that. What I can do is invite you to say, watch further, continue watching on, read these books here, and then in the documentaries, bring out some of the resources. But my preference in terms of understanding a situation is not necessarily understanding a point of view that I agree with, but looking at the point of view that I disagree with, and try to understand why they think the way they think. Why do they have? What reasons do they have to sort of say this is the way I believe? And what I noticed is that when you're talking to and interviewing a person from Jerusalem, and this is one of the interviews and videos I was looking at tonight. The person from Jerusalem who was in Jerusalem and was Jewish did not support the American-Israeli, the AIPAC position. Did not support the position of the Prime Minister. And this may shock a lot of people, but that the average Israeli on the ground does not think the way the political power structure does. That they have other alternative points of view. And this includes, there are a number of Israeli peace groups who are working to protect the Palestinians. And their reports coming out, which are completely being ignored by the Western media, including BBC and Al Jazeera, is what's going on with the Palestinian people. Now, Israel says, oh, we have a right to settlements. Why should we be concerned about where Israel builds an apartment building? Well, there is no concern. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, if you want to go build an apartment building around someplace, or build a house, or move into a neighborhood, that's no problem. You can live wherever you want to live, right? You know, buy the property and, you know, move in. But this isn't what's occurring in Israel. What's occurring is that they're going into neighborhoods that are Palestinian, condemning the neighborhood, bulldozing and destroying the houses, and then, on top of that rubble, building the settlements. So it's not a matter that they're simply moving in. It's a matter of they're systematically cleansing areas of Palestinians. And this is not a report coming out of a Palestinian group. These are reports coming out of Israeli groups who are opposed to what they're seeing on the ground in Israel. But I said, this does not come out in the American news. This does not come out in the mainstream news. It does not come out on BBC. A lot of it is really hidden beneath the surface. And so then when you see, like, Senator John McCain today coming out and saying that, and arguing with the Secretary of Defense Leon Panetta, how long do we have to sit and wait for the before we go in and start protecting the Syrian people from being slaughtered by their dictator? And they're talking about how brutal Bashir is. And this was the same argument they used in Libya. about Gaddafi, even though in 2009 they were allies with Gaddafi. And a lot of people don't understand this, is that the United States installed Gaddafi. Gaddafi was put in by a CIA-created coup. Iran was created by the CIA and France. The Ayatollah Khomeini was not initially Iranian. He's Persian, but he wasn't from Iran. He was from France. He was in Paris. He was imported from France and Paris into Iran to act against the Shah, who the United States and several other allies had put in years ago. So a lot of what's going on in the Middle East is that you're having Western powers, the EU, the UN, the United States, actively getting involved in creating these nations, and as soon as their positions or thoughts change, their policies change, and they throw one government out and bring another government in. And this is what's going on in Syria. Syria is right now, because if you look at the path to Iran, because we're now on war watch with Iran, there's a number of people who are watching this whole war with Iran thing. If you understand the environment that's going on there, you know that Syria is the corridor, and say this is the corridor they say they need to have a no-fly zone or a humanitarian aid corridor, and they're talking about now knocking out Syria's ability to bring its aircraft. You know, they're talking about its air force its air capacity, right? Its air defenses capacity. Well, why are they concerned about this? Well, look at the flight path. The flight path from Israel to Iran is through Syria. That's the best path to go through. And the exact areas that they're talking about, these air corridors, is that is the Israeli path to Iran. So what's going on in Syria, as horrible as it is simply another chunk of this global war, this global positioning for power, money, and oil. This is all it's about here. It has nothing to do with humanitarian. And a lot of this humanitarian talk is designed for public consumption, to say, oh, we're doing something humane. And this is what people really have to be careful with, is that sometimes the actions that look humane are not necessarily humane, and they're not even designed to be humane. There is a secondary purpose to it that is aimed at war, and this is where we are today, right now, and we still are on this war watch with Iran. The focus right now is on Syria. Why are we looking at Syria? Because Syria is where the war is going to begin. Syria is this is the covert war between Israel and Iran is already going on in there. We're looking to see if it's going to spill over into something larger, and this is what's going to happen. And this is going in. It's going to coincide with the U.S. election, and is there to push policy. It shapes how both the Democrat and the Republicans put out their public policies on foreign policy, and then also domestic policy. So this is not, as you see in the news, humanitarian. It is not, as you see in the news, a concern about the welfare of these people. It's politics. And this is what you have to remember. So this is it for another edition of the Media Watch headline news on INN. And I hope that you'll join us again tomorrow night at the end of another news day for the same thing.